Punch Card Investing, a weekly show dedicated to all things value investing. Whether it be analyzing companies, pitching ideas, or discussing moves by the best investors in the world, we're trying to get one step closer to punching an investment off of our cards. Let's get started.
Thank you, intro man. It's hard not to feel the energy of that guy who leads us in to a wonderful episode, hopefully wonderful, of Punch Card Investing. Another 13F week. We do this once a quarter, looking at what some of the best super investors are doing in the world, and taking a look at, see if there's any ideas that we can pull from them, discussing the context behind some of these moves and all that great stuff. And we have a very special guest with us, a new face. Well, not too new. He's been around the Punch Card community plenty, but first time we're seeing him on screen, Mike Sharp. He's actually got his own YouTube channel, so be sure to go check that out. Talks about a lot of similar sorts of topics that we talk about here, and puts his own 2 cents on it. So definitely a great channel to follow. So be sure to check out Mike later. We'll be hearing from you in just a second, Mike. But before we get into today's episode, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. It goes a long way towards helping the channel. And also check out those links in the description below for ShareSite and also for Seeking Alpha. They're both discount links. If you end up signing up for a premium version of their services, we actually get a small commission, which would be great and help out the channel and ideally get a nice little product out of it. So check that out, and also check out the Discord. Mike is very active in there. All right, guys. Before we dive into 13Fs, Mike, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself a bit and let us know what you're all about. Why are you even here, Mike?
Why am I here? Well, I thought if I said no to you a third time, you might just kick me out forever. So I was like, I gotta cancel my whole plans that I had. I gotta show up because I really want to be there. What am I about? I'm inspired by guys like you on YouTube. I started a channel in January. I'm a value investor, obviously, and I don't know. What am I supposed to say about myself? I don't know.
I think that's fantastic. We appreciate the kind words, of course. And that's kind of the fun part about like this little weird value club on YouTube. It's a relatively small group with some pretty noticeable leaders. At least one of them is in this room, and it's cool to kind of hear different perspectives. And it's great that you actually started a channel because it's you got to have like the right sort of temperament to do it, because it can be exhausting if you're trying to make money on it or something like that. But if it's just a way to kind of communicate your ideas, that can be a great thing to do with it too. So you're definitely off to a roaring start, which is good to see.
It's mostly for me, right? So I can record my stuff, and then I'm like accountable to what I said, right? Whereas it just stops me from making random purchases or sales, because I go like, oh, I'm going to have to tell this to a camera. Do I really want to do it? Right? It's kind of like, help me solve one of my problems, if that makes sense.
It is a double-edged sword. So, Mike, where are you at? Tell us a little about your background a bit.
I live in a small town called Squamish in Western Canada. Well, I don't know what you want for a background. You want the 5-second version?
Yeah, sure. Well, whatever you're comfortable telling, of course.
I've been in stock since I was a kid. My parents bought me shares in 2 companies when I was a kid, and they both got bought out, and I got checks in the mail, and I was hooked since I was like 12.
A finance nerd from an early point.
Oh yeah. I got an accounting background and all this kind of stuff. But I was I own a fundraising company, a private company, and I was the CEO of that company for a few years. And then I hired somebody who was better than me to take the company to the next level. And now I'm the board chair, and it allows me way more time to do what I want, which is investing and just like reading annual reports and doing nerdy stuff like we love.
Well, you seem to have found the right group. Hey, we're going to be doing that same class of stuff right now, looking at what other investors are buying and getting excited about that. So if that gets you guys going, you're in the right place too. So without further ado, should we just dive into there's definitely some weird 13Fs out there this time around. I put Michael Burry in the title. Maybe we kick off with him just because it's such a weird one.
Yeah, I wonder if before we get into that, Jack, if my maths is correct, I believe before we even went live, we've got 11 super chats from Luis, and no comments at all. I don't think, just straight super chats, and one from Jonathan as well. So if Luis or Jonathan, I don't know, have any initial questions or something, maybe we should do that.
Is there a 13F you guys want to see? We appreciate the super chats. I have to say the super chats have been really rolling in the last couple of weeks, especially. So perhaps that's as a result of us talking about the Punch Card Conference or meetup that we're tentatively planned for the Berkshire meeting sometime around then, and that seems to get people excited. So I'm not going to promise us what the super chats are going to go towards, but hey, if it means we can make the conference cooler, maybe I can promise something. But if you guys have a particular 13F though, or a question, definitely let us know. That's kind of how we roll with the super chats. You'll just get a priority on your question getting asked. Luis says he questions his sanity. No answer there.
Yeah. Okay. I reckon let's do Burry because we've put it in the title, and then let's do Buffett because we'll probably have more to add on that.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. We'll get the title guys out of the way. Or are you supposed to end with the title guys? I don't even know how that works.
Okay. We got to keep the people on till the end.
Yeah, right. Aquamarine.
Now, so do we know why Burry sold everything? Does he just think that the entire world's about to crash? Is that his theory? Because
yeah. Besides, I think prisons, which is the one.
Right.
Yeah, the one private prison. Right? What is it's? I thought it was Scion, right?
Scion Asset Management, I think. Scion
you have to
Capital,
do the second word too to pull it up on ticker. All right, cool. Let me share my screen. There we go. Lots of red. Everything getting sold down.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a few international stocks still there, but if we look just at his 13F, there's that one stock which is Geo Group, and everything else disappeared. So he cleared out the like the put options on Apple, which I think was a larger position from last quarter, which got him in the news again.
So that makes me think he's bearish on the U.S. primarily. Is that sort of the idea? He's still holding on to some of the other stuff.
That seems like a fair take, though. I would say, if you're bearish in the U.S., you're probably bearish on a lot more than just the U.S. Right. At least in the current environment. But definitely bearish on the U.S. At least if his somewhat cryptic tweets and sometimes not cryptic tweets are any indication. But it's confusing because he has we look at his 13F from time to time just because it's interesting and different, and there's usually so much churn, so it's hard to say whether this is just a short-term thing. Is this like I'm waiting till there is a crash? It's very hard to say exactly. He could be fully invested again next month, and there's stuff again that we can't see. That's one limitation with 13Fs is not everything qualifies to actually show up on these things or other regulatory filings in other countries. So keep that in mind with all these guys. But definitely an intense move, we'll say, given what's been going on with other super investors.
I have to admit on this. Oh, sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Go for it, Mike.
I was just going to say, I have to admit on this bounce with the stock market, I also have the occasional temptation to just dump everything.
Oh, always.
So I feel like I don't see a real reason for us to be bullish here, but maybe maybe I'm missing something. Like, I don't know why we would go to new highs here with, inflation. Well, it's coming down now. That's sort of the idea, but inflation is very high.
8% inflation is worth celebrating now.
Yeah.
Stated inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, I find Burry just very hard to, I don't know, kind of get anything from in these filings.
At least at the company level, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of macro sort of momentum built in, it seems.
It seems that way, yeah. I'm sure if you dug into, like, I don't know if you guys have read some of Michael Burry's very old letters, but when he was running Scion the first time around, like the letters he was writing and positions he was putting on leading up to the financial crisis and what turned into the Big Short movie and all that sort of stuff. He laid out his he lay out his thinking like very clearly, and even the housing short was like a long-term position. In the movies, it's like taking it longer than expected to kind of kick in, and it's going against him and all that stuff. And then you look at his 13F now, and it's just like, well, in this quarter, it's basically 100% portfolio turnover in a single quarter, and it may be more than 100% because we're not seeing what happens like in between the ends of each quarter, if that makes any sense. So I find it hard to take much from, but interesting to see what he's up to at least.
I do kind of wonder if this Geo Group private prison thing is like more of a symbolic stock that he left in, like just sending some sort of like pessimistic message about things, and more so than just actually looking for profits. That's just a theory, and I have no proof, but it is kind of interesting that is the only one that was left on the at least the U.S. side of the regulatory filings.
Yeah.
Manu says Geo was on the deep ETF some time back, so maybe it is good value. I'm certainly not into that space.
Do you guys follow any macro investors and see how they operate? Burry is kind of a macro guy. It would seem like at this point, to some extent.
It's kind of hard. It's almost like a guilty pleasure not to at least sometimes follow the macro stuff. Plus, it's thrown in your face all the time. Like Ray Dalio's one. That's he puts out some interesting, actually video and written content. So he's a good one to follow. And then there are quite a few on Twitter as well, talking a lot about central banks and all that stuff. I find it pretty interesting, though. Yeah, it's hard to really get an actionable investment plan or some course of action out of it, at least in my experience. It's a different game. You're trying to really play huge market trends. Do either of you guys?
I've noticed that the ones who get it right, it's very rare to have somebody who gets a lot of things right. You know what I mean? Like the guys who made tons of money in the Big Short, like in 2009, like Kyle Bass, like macro guys typically aren't consistent winners like we see in the super investors and sort of the value investing community. So it's very hard to I find it hard to glean any information from moves like this, like Tom was saying.
It's such a hard game because it seems like you can be very correct in principle about a lot of things, but then still lose a bunch of money because there's just so many factors. And then, of course, emotion is just like with any stocks, just like the broader market and individual stocks alike. And emotions can swing things so fast, and get enough people buying a particular thing or selling a particular thing. It just throws off the whole rational, logical plan that might have been great on the surface. But
yeah, the timing is hard. You can be right, but you can be 10 years early.
Right.
Yeah.
Top economists have predicted 14 of the last 3 recessions after all. So, all right. So that's that. Now that we're all warmed up, where to next? Buffett, I think we said.
Yeah,
Berkshire had some action.
Let's do the Buff Dog.
Wrong tab on ticker. Berkshire Hathaway.
There he is.
Here we are. I believe wasn't the biggest move more once again Occidental Petroleum, Oxy.
Yeah. Would you mind actually just going to Whale Wisdom if you can, Jack, for this 13F? Because I think that's interesting. We've got sort of a couple of different types of filings that are feeding into Berkshire's 13F this time around. Like we obviously get the 13F, but there's been a whole bunch of Form 4s coming out around Oxy, which are like the filings people have to, submit when they're more than a 10% shareholder, I think it is. May even be a lower threshold than that. So we've been getting those pretty consistently. So we've actually got Oxy kind of shareholder type stats from after the 13F cutoff date, if that makes any sense. So if you go to see all holdings, Jack.
Sure. Where is that? Over here.
Over to the right. Yeah.
It was behind my speaker.
Yeah, and then up the top there, it's got current combined. So that's kind of giving us the latest figures. Like a little up from where you are now. Yeah, so if you go just to his Q1 2213F, yeah, and if we look at Oxy, he's got 136 million shares is what he had when the last 13F came out. So it was a brand new position then. If you then jump to the Q2 13F, which is technically the one we've just got, it's jumped up to 158 million shares. But if you include the Form 4s, so if you go to the next one in that menu, the current combined, he's all the way up to 272 million shares. So it's basically doubled from last time a 13F came out, even though it says here that there's no change. So that's probably the big highlight, really, as he continues to buy pretty seriously into oil.
Am I the only one who finds this a little bit odd that he's starts buying oil when it's over $100 a barrel? Far be it for me to question Buffett, but I just find it a bit, I was like confused by it.
We were just talking about macro, and it feels kind of like a macro play. And I will say, I've heard some interesting theses about what if, say, Russia turned off the taps in some places. What would that do to oil prices everywhere else? Maybe there's something having to do with that. Then again, Berkshire Energy is a massive portion of the portfolio, so maybe they know something we don't. I'm not really sure exactly what the thought is, because you're right. There obviously is a concern that oil is relatively expensive compared to the last couple of years. So yeah, typically you'd want to buy when it's cheap, and maybe they think it's cheap.
Yeah, I've spent a few nights actually on oil the last couple of weeks trying to dig into this. I think the idea is actually pretty straightforward if I had to guess at how Buffett's thinking about this. Like if you look at some of the things he said over time about investing in oil, he's basically said, it sounds pretty obvious when you say it out loud, but he's basically said, your results are going to be very dependent on what the oil price is. And there's a lot of sort of operational leverage that's inherent in many of these oil businesses. So, if it costs them, call it $40 to produce a barrel of oil, and they're selling that barrel of oil for $50, they make a small profit. If they sell it for 60 or 70, that difference between 50 to 70 is basically all going to flow to the bottom line. So when you get to a situation like recently where oil's been $100 plus, the cash flows are just ridiculous, basically. And I think we've obviously been through many of these oil cycles over time where prices get really, really high, and then they get like unbelievably low to where oil companies are losing a lot of money. And the last kind of big boom we had was probably 2007. I think if you were to look at a Oxy stock price over the long term, we're probably getting, I think we're only just getting back to kind of 2007 levels now. And the kind of big driving force at that time in terms of capital allocation was basically just investing for growth, trying to find more oil and, grow the overall business, which obviously there's a very important supply demand dynamic in this industry. So if there's increased supply, not great for oil prices, and we saw that flow through over the next few years. But if you listen to like an Occidental or a Chevron or a Vermilion or a Ring Energy or like any kind of oil company conference call that gets talked about in kind of the value community, I basically don't hear a single company talking about investing for growth. Like every single company is talking about repaying debt, which Oxy and Chevron are doing like huge amounts of. The numbers are just insane. They're all basically paying massive dividends, or at least sustainable dividends, even with lower oil prices. And then kind of the balance is going to pretty aggressive share repurchases. So I think...
So there's not new competition coming. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think Buffett has a view that oil prices over the long term are probably going to be higher than most people anticipate because oil's obviously getting harder to find over time. Like it's going to take a long time to transition away from oil. and no one's really spending the money trying to find more. So I think he likes the supply-demand dynamics for oil over the long term, and he likes the capital allocation. I think they're basically the two factors.
And there is the regulatory factor too regarding competition. If it becomes harder, not only just because of the physical limitations, when you find all like the easy to tap into stuff, when that's gone, you had the fracking boom, which caused the oversupply, like you were kind of getting at. But now you have like increasingly more regulations against fossil fuels, or at least encouragements to get away from fossil fuels, which would drive money elsewhere. So maybe, that seems to make sense, at least from like a high level.
I mean, if go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that you're right on there with the supply, because if you listen to any of those like macro podcasts, they say the supply is just not coming online, and the actual current supply is decreasing over time. But there's a huge political component too, right? Like you're saying, Jack, in the U.S., supply is very constrained by the political environment, and then
not just U.S., but definitely U.S.
Yeah. Well, U.S. is such a huge producer too, right? That's actually a big, and it doesn't take a much movement in the supply for the price to move a lot, right? I don't know if the word for that is, but like if supply goes down by 1 million barrels a day, then the price goes up like $10 or something. So there's that, but then you also have the political risk, like you're talking about in Russia, where they could use it as a weapon, right? Like that puts a huge like cloud over the whole sector, I would guess.
And someone mentioned in the chat as well, maybe this is a move to eventually acquire it and just kind of absorb yet another energy company, or energy assets at least, to add into Berkshire Energy. Which maybe, but I feel like they would have gone for the swing at this point if that was really the case.
Well, I believe he got some sort of approval to buy up to like 50% of the stock just last night.
Wow.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, he is like. I assume that just means accumulating it in the open market still. But if you've still got Whale Wisdom up there somewhere, Jack, it should tell you that he owns like 20-something% of the company now.
29. It's almost
29. Wow. Yeah.
And do we know what
zero
the cash flows
earlier
are
this year?
What are the cash flows? 15 billion for cash flow from operations in the last 12 months.
I'll pull up the ticker real quick.
Yeah, I've got their quarterly earnings open at the moment. So this was obviously in a quarter of very high oil prices, but they had 4.2 billion of free cash flow in a single quarter. Is the latest number they've just reported.
Yeah, so maybe the thinking is really simple. It's like if he just owns the whole company, that the free cash flow will pay off the entire purchase in in a matter of years.
And they managed to survive 2020 with positive free cash flow as well. If I'm looking at that right. Which was not the case for a lot of oil companies. Here's the free cash flow graph. It doesn't show this last year, but it shows 2021.
Yeah, can you flick that to quarterly by any chance, Jack?
Yep.
Well, that's still not going to show the latest quarter, is it?
No, but I can scroll down here and you can see last 12 months, about 12 billion.
Yeah, and I think.
And I'll go to quarterly
sorry,
now.
that is on quarterly now? Oh, okay.
No, that was annual.
Right.
12 bill a quarter would be a lot.
Yeah. Have you guys seen what Saudi Aramco just did?
Oh yeah, what is it, 48 billion or something?
Something like that, after a 50% corporate tax rate, I think.
That is insane.
Yeah, there we go.
So
Here's your
it's
quarterly
trading
view.
at 5 times free cash flow right now. Is that what it's at, Foxy?
Well, if they maintain, of course, but yes.
Yeah. At this rate.
Yeah. They also, so in the same quarter, they paid down 4.8 billion in debt and purchased 1.1 billion in share buybacks, all in a single quarter. So it's
yes, price elasticity. That Stephen said it. That's what we're talking. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. So I mean, from my perspective and some of the initial digging I've done, it sort of seems like, seems like a lot of the stock prices for these oil companies kind of assume like maybe something in the ballpark of like $70 oil, like as a long-term price. And I think Buffett probably just has a view that it's going to be higher than that long-term. And even if it's higher in the short term, like if they can pay back a bunch of debt and buy back a bunch of shares, it kind of changes the dynamics of the investment as well, even if it is $70 long term. So
I was listening to somebody else and they
10
thought it was
cents.
oh, sorry, Tom.
There you go.
Sorry, Tom. I think I'm on a lag, so I cut you off every once in a while.
We're trying to cover as many time
else who was
zones
saying
as
this-
possible. Now I'm doing it. All right, Mike, go.
Okay, here we go. So Sven Carlin, I was watching what he's saying, and he thinks this is an inflation hedge play, right? So Buffett got out of, I think he sold all of his bonds, didn't he, or a huge chunk of them, and then at the same time is buying Oxy. So it could be because he was getting killed on his real returns on his bonds. Is that right? Am I remembering that correct?
I don't know that Berkshire has. Are you talking about bonds to do with Oxy or just bonds generally?
No, it's just his treasury holdings, just generally.
Yeah, gotcha.
I might.
Yeah, I mean he does have all of Berkshire's cash basically sits in like short-term treasuries, so that's where the money's coming from. I mean, if you read like the Buffett's old How Inflation Swindles the Equity Investor article, he basically boils it down to, for you to get a good real return when inflation's high, you have to own businesses that can increase their return on equity. And there's not that many levers for a company to do that. Like interest rates are going up, so you're not going to get cheaper leverage. Probably not going to take on more leverage when that's happening to juice return on equity. And sort of all boils down to either having pricing power, like a See's Candy or something did through the 70s and 80s, or you own some commodity that's just ripping, I guess. But that's obviously harder to predict in the long run.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else on Berkshire? That was kind of the big one, but and there were some other moves too. Wasn't Ally Financial another one?
Yeah, they did add pretty significantly to Ally, and they got rid of their last little bit of Verizon. I think that was already a minuscule position.
That was a slow exit, I must say.
Yeah.
After what seemed like a puzzling addition at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Where's Ally? Does it even show up on the first page?
Probably not. I think it's a Ted and Todd stock, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah.
It's still pretty.
I kind of find the bottom of the portfolio a little bit more interesting with Buffett, but that's all Ted and Todd.
Yeah. It's hard to take it as seriously as plowing billions into Occidental, or anything. But it's a good place for potential ideas.
Yeah.
Someone likes it there, which means something, right?
Yeah, Norbert Liu bought more, I think, as well in the same quarter.
I just noticed the selling down a bit of HP as well. That was a fairly recent ad. Was that in the last 12 months? I think it was.
Yeah, interesting. And we haven't mentioned it, but he actually added to Apple, even as big as it is now.
Is that just like reinvesting dividends or something?
I don't know.
Also, it's down to only 30. It's only 30% of the stock portfolio now, according to Ticker. That's actually it's kind of a big. Wasn't it like as high as 50 at a time?
Could have been.
But he's been moving so much cash in Occidental and others. It's been slowly reallocating.
Yeah. I think we might have skipped
Apple
over
took a bit of a dip though. Maybe it was on June 30th.
What was on June 30th?
What was that? Maybe it was just the date of the filing on June 30th. Apple price was quite low. Am I lagging?
No. I didn't know what you meant, but I guess it could be. Would it? Yeah, I guess because it's based on the reported value, not the market value. So yeah, maybe that was the case. I haven't checked Apple price recently, but I guess we can check right here. So since June,
it was just at a low price on June 30th.
Yeah. So it's been, it's gone up pretty significantly since end of June. So maybe it's back up to 50. Who knows? Have to look at everything else too.
Yeah.
Anything else with Berkshire and Buffett?
No, I think oil's the big news
That's
there.
definitely the highlight.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be too surprised at this point if he just buys Oxy, but we'll see.
Watch, and next quarter he sells it all. He's done.
Yeah, inflation fixed and he's out.
Yeah, inflation has been defeated.
Yeah, I think he just likes the cash flow, to be honest.
Hard not to.
Yeah,
rarely hurts. Okay, well, we had the super chat back some 10 minutes ago from Tommy asking about Seth Klarman and Chuck. Did we say Akre or is it Acre? I think it's Akre, right? Or the world may never know. I've never heard it actually said. I just read it all the time. One of those. Well, Chuck and Seth. He wants us to look at those. Any preference for which one first? And thank you for the super chat, Tommy.
Yeah. I haven't heard of DBRG. I don't think.
DBRG for Chuck.
Bridge Group.
I'll pull up Akre Capital Management now. And then that DBRG holding is down here. It's 0.5% of the reported portfolio, so relatively small, but he added a significant amount to the position. And then DBRG is... Oh, that's not what I clicked.
Yeah, can we have a look at some of the financials, Jack? I'm not that familiar with the...
Yeah, I was trying to pull it up, but it keeps redirecting me to the wrong stock.
Yeah. Have you heard of this one, Mike, or not?
No, I haven't.
Digital Bridge, ticker symbol DBRG, is an infrastructure investment firm. It specializes in investing and operating businesses across the digital ecosystem, including cell towers, data centers, fiber, small cells, edge infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and real estate. So it looks like mostly a data center kind of firm, which
now
not a bad space to be in, I suppose.
Now I'm more interested because one of Chuck Akre's best investments ever, I think, is American Tower. If you go back to his 13F, I think it's in the top 2 or 3 positions, and he's held that for a very long time.
Same sort of feeling.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Let's take a look at top line first.
What's going on with the revenue there? Spike in 2018, then it disappears.
Yeah, that's a little weird. Were they all offline or something doing upgrades? Like, it's kind of weird.
Planned outage.
Yeah, for a full year.
Yeah,
that is weird.
Yeah, these ones are going to be hard to judge. Just looking.
Yeah, very volatile revenues. 2018, 766 million, then down to 6 million in 2019, then back up to 312 in 2020, then back up to 762 2021, and then last 12 months, $821 million in revenue. So top line is all over the place. Deep negative net income.
Less deep over time.
Yeah, this maybe doesn't look like a value investment. This looks more like a you need to know what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to make it tricky to look at without knowing kind of what's going on, I think.
You'd have to know what they own and then really take a look at kind of the asset value of what they've built, because it looks like they're obviously reinvesting a ton of money. Acquisition of real estate assets, it's a huge line item here. So you'd want to know what's
Can we have a quick look at American Tower while we're at it?
Yeah, sure.
I'd be interested to see what that looks like over time. I haven't looked closely, but I assume they just slowly grow and then do a bunch of buybacks or something, if I had to guess.
We'll start with top line. Pretty steady upward trajectory.
Yeah. And what's the shares outstanding look like over time?
9 billion in revenue, and then shares. Oh no,
they haven't been buying back. No, you're in the right place, Jack.
I was looking at current shares outstanding is what I was looking for.
Yeah, it's on income statement, isn't it? Oh no, here we go.
Well, your shares outstanding though. It's been fairly flat.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
And then we'll take a look at cash flows now. Increasing net income. Where's that free cash flow line? I missed it.
If you'd somehow bought it at the bottom in 2002, then it's been 100 bigger since then.
Is that all?
All you have
That
to do
is
is buy it right at the bottom, right? That's all you got to do.
Yeah, then just not look at it for 20 years.
Sounds pretty easy.
But they too have been acquiring a lot more, billions of dollars in real estate.
I think this is one of Pabrai's like feet on the desk style businesses, isn't it? When he talks about, you don't need to be a genius to run it type thing.
Oh, maybe. Pabrai doesn't have his feet on the desk
I don't know about
these days.
that. No, as someone who's worked on some data center leases, they get kind of complicated. So I think it's a little bit. It's not like buy warehouses, rent warehouses. It's a bit more involved. But hey, they've made a lot of money doing it, so they figure something out.
Yeah.
Did somebody mention Klarman?
Yeah, I'm just understanding this comment. It's actually AMT as American Tower. So we got on the right tangent. There we go.
So those are two to definitely take a look at if you're interested in that space.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not a whole lot on Chuck Akre's 13F.
It doesn't look like any real conviction.
Yeah, a lot of just like little minor tweaks here and there. So I guess we can go to Seth Klarman. What is
how big a
his
swing
fund
did
again?
you take at this one? Balpost Group.
I was looking at his biggest holding recently, just really quickly. The Liberty Global. Have you guys looked at that one?
Yeah, that's a tough one to look at very quickly, I think, because it's in the overall like Liberty Media John Malone complex, right? Where everything's kind of somehow interrelated and sometimes not. Haven't looked closely.
No, I haven't either. But I was just intrigued by the buybacks. They're just massive compared to the.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
cap.
textbook John Malone. Like do a ton of buybacks, often with debt, I think as well, or like I know with Curate they issued a bunch of preferred stock, and then did buybacks as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know he's also got a reputation for paying his CEOs extremely well if they do a good job. But yeah, not sure the story on that specific one. There's a ton of different Liberty Media kind of spin-offs and things.
I feel like Seth Klarman's is a bit more interesting. He looks like he's running for the hills on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of sells for sure, big sells. And half of his Intel position.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Google, 30% down.
Yeah.
Dropbox as well. And definitely net selling.
I've been watching Intel for years, and I'm waiting for my pitch.
You and every other value investor, it seems.
Yes. When is capitulation coming? Let's have it. $15.
Anything else on Klarman?
I think this is another tough one because I know they do a lot of. I think they do some private equity and real estate stuff as well, so it's more difficult to get the context.
And it's a very diversified, chopped up portfolio, so it's a little hard to understand full conviction because of that.
What about Warner there? Are you guys up on Warner?
Yeah, we need Karan.
Oh, is he the Warner guy?
He's the Warner guy. I'm certainly not. I don't know if you've got it. You guys know much about it.
No, I know there was a lot of chat in in your Discord. There's a lot of chat about Warner. I think there's some interest brewing here.
That is a pretty big one though. 2.5% of the reported portfolio.
Anyway, none of us know anything about it, so
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It is there. See, people, it is there. We'll leave it at that. All right,
Mike,
why don't we get into some?
Mike,
go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mike, did you have any 13Fs that kind of jumped out at you this quarter that you want to take a look at?
Well, you mentioned it on your video, but I thought the Li Lu one was fairly interesting. I thought the meta bouncing around, that made me feel a lot better about myself, if that makes sense. Because I'm like, oh, even Li Lu is not quite sure sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
But I wonder if his view on it changed with the information the last 2 quarters. Like I follow Meta, and the cash flows are they're falling apart as they try and build their metaverse.
As expected, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Going to here's I'm going to whale wisdom so you can actually see everything. Here we go. Here's Himalaya Capital.
Boom.
This is a 13F that would make our friend Jason, the after dinner investor, would make him smile.
Oh yeah.
Adds to Google, sells off Meta, Facebook.
Yeah. So he pulled 8% of the portfolio out of Meta, and I guess has added a little more than that to Google. He's gone from 10 to 17 on one of the Google share classes and 0 to 5 on another. Yeah.
And how much I've heard it's 80 to 90% he's invested in international stuff. So is that right? That sort of range where this is only maybe 10 or 20% of his whole portfolio?
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think even if you scroll up on Whale Wisdom, it might give you assets under management, Jack. Just in the text there.
Where would it be?
Yeah, right there.
Summary?
So 18 billion.
Oh.
18 billion,
and then here
this
we
shows
have
1.8 billion, I think it said. So this is only 10% potentially.
Approximately, we'll say.
Yeah.
Here's a question that's going to make me seem like a bad guy, but like if you're Li Lu, right, and you're a genius, like is this the best you can find in the U.S. like the mega cap tech companies? Like, am I just undervaluing what these companies are? If that makes sense, like don't you hit the law of large numbers at some point with like a Google or an Apple or?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's a portfolio construction sort of move because it's only 10% approximately.
Well, maybe.
But it is a good question. Like maybe these are almost more like defensive kind of stalwart sort of stocks that they're not going to explode in growth necessarily, but they got good cash flows. They got clean balance sheets for the most part. So maybe it's something along that. It's hard to say without the other context.
It could be defensive. It could be like in place of cash. If he thinks, like I'd rather be holding Google in a crash than some other stuff.
He actually has a ton of YOLO options, and these are like hedges to the options or something.
Yeah, I would love to see what he owns in China because I don't think we get anything additionally from Ticker at the moment. I know he's been in BYD for a long time, and I think that BYD is substantially larger than the Micron position we're seeing here. But last time I looked, that it actually dropped off Ticker, although I don't know that there's actually been any updated filings. Like people seem to be pretty sure he does still own BYD.
Sorry guys, my internet's terrible. I apologize.
You're all right over here. All right, cool. Lee Lu making us think.
Yeah, we should get him on Punch Card one of these weeks.
Hey, you got the
Tom,
insights
you can
too.
do it.
I loved in your video, Tom. I got to say, when you were you're like, oh, here's Lee Lu's 13F, and then you're like, here's the picture I have with Lee Lu, and then here's Mohnish Pabrai 13F, and here's the picture I have with Mohnish Pabrai.
Did you like what they said about the channel though?
And they gave their insight as well, which was great.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, are those actual pictures? I was wondering, is this like Photoshop? Oh, you actually have them. Oh, that's awesome.
No, yeah, Tom's a baller. His net worth, like by the transitive property, just grew immensely when he went to the Berkshire meeting. He's hanging out with billionaires like every hour.
Well done.
Speaking of Mohnish, should we go to him next?
Let's do it.
I think I might be beating Mohnish for the first year of my life. Like this is the only year.
I could say some mean comment about, blind horse finds water or something like that, but I won't.
That's what I'm implying.
I just met you, Mike. No, I don't know. But yeah, year to year things can get pretty wild. It's been a wild year for Pabrai, that's for sure. Just a lot of portfolio turnover, and a lot of it flowing into international holdings. I probably should even get off of ticker so we can see maybe some more stuff.
Did you guys see the Shinokin buyout there?
Yeah, I don't know the details, but I saw the news that the Shinokin's been bought out. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,600 yen per share, which is exceedingly disappointing, but he was right on that one. Just didn't have enough of it, I think. What's he at, 2%?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got a recent filing though. That's from 2021. He had sold down.
Oh, it might be gone.
So yeah, well, you'd think we would see it. Yeah, maybe he's under the threshold now. Because I think Japan, the filing's 5% by the looks of that. So maybe he's all the way out, even though it's still showing here. It's hard with some of these international ones to even know if they're legit.
We got a super chat here from Nishant about Edelweiss, one of Pabrai's top disclosed holdings. Any views?
Not really. Not really. If you can, they're not publicly available, but occasionally you find a annual report of his floating around the internet. I think he wrote about it a couple of years ago, but I don't have anything really to add. I think he's down on the position reasonably substantially, I want to say.
It's been pretty flat for the last year or so, or more like half year.
Yeah, not sure on that one.
But otherwise, he's almost polished off the Seritage position, which is a little weird that he owns anything as of the reporting.
Yeah, he's got like 18 grand or something in Seritage, I think. Yeah, pretty weird.
Almost like a memento. Like he just keeps it on his shelf. Like I invested in Seritage once. Just hold on to share forever until it's paid out.
Yeah. One other stock that doesn't show up here, which there is actually a filing out there for, is ticker symbol TAVHL, which is a Turkish business. So not sure what percentage of that portfolio it's going to make up, but it looks like Pabrai's in this one as of maybe a couple of months ago as well.
This is that terminal one that we discussed some time ago, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
We've got Eunice in the chat. Maybe Eunice can tell us a little bit about what he thinks of this particular stuff.
Eunice is our Turkish stock expert.
Exactly.
We have a very worldwide audience here, which is always super cool.
We have many an unpaid analyst.
Yes, quite a few actually.
Yeah.
You guys have thoughts on Micron, even though he hasn't made any moves with it, like as it showed up with Lou as well?
Tom might have more thoughts than I do on that one.
No, I can. Hamish Hodder did a good video a week or two ago about the kind of underlying thesis in Micron. I get the idea. Outside of the circle for me. So I've never been in it. Yeah.
What's the who's the guy who wrote Black Swan? What's his name? Taleb. He says gluts always follow surpluses. Or no, the other way. How does it work? No, I've got it wrong now. But basically, when you have a shortage,
I think I know what
you're gonna have a glut right afterwards, and that's sort of
Yep.
where we're going into with semis, right? Like we just had the massive shortage, and everybody just cranked up their capex. And I think
I've seen gluts not followed by shortages, but I've never seen a shortage not followed by a glut.
that's the one.
It seemed to live.
Yeah. Yeah, the underlying thesis is kind of like semiconductors used to be super cyclical, and there's kind of constant innovation / creative destruction, which makes your inventory worthless. And now, like Moore's law and the rate of innovation is potentially slowing down. Plus, there's far fewer players in the industry. I think that's kind of the underlying thesis, that semiconductor prices should become more stable. But time will tell.
The margins are compressing even in the good periods, though, I've noticed, and I wonder if I would be curious to hear their thoughts on that.
That shortage glut thing. We were talking about oil earlier being like almost a shortage, if you want to call it that, just with the way the price action's going and the spread you have between the cost versus the price. So why wouldn't it be the same with semiconductors?
Yes, especially
what's so different? What's so different is really what I'm asking. So you need huge investments, sort of like oil, to build these very complicated plants. I guess you could say governments are actually encouraging semiconductor investment as opposed to oil. Maybe that's the key difference. It's just on the regulatory side.
Yep. Yeah, Nancy's right in behind that
She's very much on that boat.
Does she still have
the
NVIDIA?
plants, I'm sure, seeing if she should write some more calls.
Didn't she sell her NVIDIA?
I don't know. I thought she would. Oh, no, she did. It was right at the passage of the bill. She that semiconductor bill. The CHIPS Act or whatever it's called. Lots of bills passing left and right now. I think she closed her option or whatever, sold her shares, whatever her position was. She closed it the day that bill passed, or something like that. It's amazing that top Congress folks run essentially hedge funds.
Maybe that's who we should be cloning. Should we pull up her portfolio?
There's a serious argument to be made. The Pelosi portfolio.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Pelosi have a lot of money to throw around and a lot of influence.
Let's see what she's
better
buying.
or for worse. But that'll be the day when Ticker starts introducing Congress portfolios based on all their disclosures. That would be just great. I'm sure there are websites that consolidate them, but they're not quite as tidy as 13Fs from what I've seen.
So in the second quarter, she bought Microsoft and Apple and NVIDIA, and now she subsequently sold Visa and NVIDIA. So whatever that means.
Let's keep an eye out on the next bill. Microsoft they're already a defense contractor, so maybe there's another one coming down the pipeline. She
bought Warner Brothers as well. Warner.
No.
Oh God. Oh my. Well, I guess it's not going to get no antitrust concerns there. I guess now, right? Show me the incentive. Show you the outcome. Something.
Geez.
All right, let's get back to maybe one or two more 13 Fs before we wrap up. We're almost approaching an hour here.
I think Norbert Liu it would be a good one to look at.
Well, we can't forget about our namesake.
Exactly.
Punch Card Capital.
I do believe he punched a new card.
He did.
Punched a new hole out of his card.
One that I'm very interested in. But wait, is it Punch Card Management? I thought it was Punch Card Capital. Oh, management. I thought it was Capital for some reason.
No, that's going to be our spec.
Right. As front of mind sort of thing. Here we are, Norbert Liu, Punch Card Management, with the new position down here, this itty bitty one in Smith & Wesson. It's one of my top holdings, actually. So, it's a vote of confidence. I must have been right the whole time.
Guns and prisons.
Right.
Yeah.
Guns, prisons. He's got some wine, too. It's, cover it all.
I suspect it's a slightly less aggressive allocation than yours, Jack.
Yes. Yeah, with the 1.5% of the portfolio or so. Still very heavily weighted towards Berkshire and Ally.
And interesting to see he's still buying Naked Wines, even given all the going concern issues that had happened at Naked Wines. And Countryside Partnerships is pretty new. We got news of this a little while back, but probably between 13Fs that one was purchased, which is like a UK home builder with some potential similarities to NVR, of course, one of Norbert's most successful investments back in the day. So yeah, interesting to see what's going on there.
The Countryside Partnerships is a big one too.
Yep. Naked Wines was a big one, but it's down a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, just for me, are you able to do a 1 minute elevator pitch for Smith & Wesson? What's your...
Well, see, I don't like pitching as much as...
okay, so your thesis. Do you have a quick thesis?
Sure. Well, let's see. The first and foremost for me, whenever I'm looking at a stock, is the free cash flow position.
America.
What's that?
America.
Yeah, and freedom, freedom, of course. Yeah, with the obvious controversies aside, because that is a concern. The main pitch is that there's a lot of interest in guns, for better or for worse. That's driven a lot of new sales over the last few years. A lot of that momentum has continued to carry, though it is a bit of a cyclical sort of thing in that coincidentally during election cycles, you tend to see a lot more interest in a lot of the gun manufacturers. But Smith & Wesson has been through quite a lot. It's a very old company, and they've continued to just slowly over time, even if it's a bit cyclical, continue to grow cash flows. Have a very loyal sort of brand following. So you can call that a moat. But again, obviously you have the regulatory concerns, so it trades at a discount to what maybe a less controversial stock with its cash flows might be at. So you have to discount that somehow. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from there. Good cash flows, seems like it has a strong moat, and then decent growing interest with the number of like firearm applications, for example, for background checks that just continues to rise, which would be theoretically good for them. Maybe not bad for other people, but good for the company.
Is it like in the U.S., is it like Canada, whenever there's talk of like more regulation, the gun sales go way up?
Absolutely. I don't know the exact split on ownership, but I have a feeling there's like a 1% of gun owners who own just like dozens and dozens of guns, and they probably drive a lot of those sales, but not too sure on what the average customer is. But yes, that is the case, that typically when you see controversy, talk about new policy on that stuff, you see these stocks tend to go up, which is I guess with the thought that a lot of demand might be pulled forward or something like that.
They bought back 13% of their shares last year, according to Akre.
They've been going crazy on buybacks because they don't have any debt. They paid off all their debt like a year ago or something. And yeah, it's just been buybacks and dividends in the meantime.
Yeah.
And they're moving they moved their main headquarters as well out of Massachusetts, where they've been for like 150 years. So that was a pretty big move.
All right.
So that kind of hurt
pretty
cash
stable
flow for a
over
moment.
time.
Say again?
That looks very stable over time. I'm just looking at the 10-year.
Yeah, that was definitely an appeal. Granted, I was kind of buying it sort of a high on the cash flows, but I knew that going in. But otherwise, seems like it has a decent moat. Your mileage may vary.
Now, they hadn't done any buybacks before 2022 for about, 8 years or something. So is that something you think they're going to keep doing? Is that part of the thesis, or is that just a one-off?
No, not really. It's just kind of a bonus. I look at it the same as like a dividend. They have these extra cash flows, and it's hard to just grow forever as something like a gun company. There's only so much demand to go around. So it seems to make sense that they're returning capital to shareholders in some way, whether it be dividends or buybacks. So
when they're trading at 3 times earnings or 3.5.
Yep, because you'd expect those earnings to come down at least a bit, but
even then, you're
we'll see what happens.
7 times earnings.
Say again.
I said even then you're at 7 times earnings, or
right?
6.
Right. It's cheap.
Yeah,
I guess the real thesis is I think it's cheap.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I think you've got that exact same story basically, where Norbert Lou thinks earnings are probably coming down, but it still might look cheap with Winnebago. Right. Basically, same deal there.
Exactly.
Also, guys, fun fact: did you guys know that Norbert Lou never actually bought Berkshire Hathaway?
Never bought it?
Have I confused you?
Yes.
So he initially invested in Burlington Northern Railroad, and then it was acquired by Berkshire, and he's held on to the shares ever since.
and then now his top reported holding.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wish one of the companies I owned would have done that, so I could have owned Berkshire and made money. But I've been too stupid to buy it for my whole life.
Yeah, which I think it's pretty unusual for Berkshire to issue shares in an acquisition. There's an old 2014 interview with Norbert Lou where it talks through all this, but apparently there must have been an option to elect to take Berkshire shares instead of cash. So that's how that one got in there.
And I mean, we have to point this out here, Tom. He added to Winnebago. I don't know how that makes you feel. How that makes you feel?
Well, it makes me feel pretty good, really. Yeah. I know it's not Thor, but I'd rather see that than him selling it.
Yeah. Hey, he's bullish on the industry in some capacity, right?
Yeah, and he's been pretty right to have actually picked Winnebago over Thor if you look back the past few years. I guess it depends on what prices you got in and stuff. But
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any
Any final 13Fs? Should probably wrap up shortly. I keep doing the zoomed in face. Sorry, hitting the wrong button. But
should we take some questions?
Yeah, maybe we could squeeze a couple questions. Anyone have questions for Mike? We'll put him on the spot. see what he's got to add.
I only know the stocks that I look at, and there's 5 of them. So ask him about those 5.
So ask Mike about his 5 stocks, and then we can go, and then we can wrap up. But questions about maybe 13Fs that we didn't look at. There are more out there, of course. Anything else before we wrap up here? We'll try to hit maybe 2 or 3 questions real quick.
Yeah. Is one of those 5 stocks still Seritage, Mike? I know you made quite a few videos on Seritage over the past.
It is.
I guess this year.
It's the thesis is here now, so now I have to hold. You must be quite happy about that, Tom.
Yeah, I in hindsight should have bought some when it was a lot lower, but yeah, it's nice to see that coming to fruition. I guess obviously the redevelopment thesis is completely out the window now, but at least we might get a look at the net asset value, which would be good. My
whole idea was it morphed. I watched a lot of your videos with Matt and Brad and all that, and great foundation. And then I was like, oh, there's this debt date that they have to get, and that's a catalyst date, right? And I'm like, something's going to happen big between now and then, right? So I ended up looking more short term. It's like they're either going to be able to sell tons of properties or they're going to fail. And then, but either way, it looked like we were going to get a pretty strong answer within a year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you think they're going to make it? Do you think they're going to get to the 800 million?
I'd be very, well, yeah, not financial advice, anybody watching, but yeah, I mean, in my estimation, they've got 3 billion plus in real estate. So if they can't generate another, it's only like 540 million now because they've already repaid some. If they can't generate that between now and July, something's pretty seriously wrong. So yeah,
market plummet.
Market crash.
My only risk left is the Fed. Like the only thing that can kill them is the Fed now. I think like if they jack rates up to 6%, then I think that's going to kill real estate.
That is the bane of all real estate. It is completely propped up by subsidies and printed money. So if that goes away, that's going to hurt.
But we'll be fine if inflation's transitory.
10 years and then it transitions to something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's one for you, Mike. Matt with a super chat. Thank you very much. Any concerns about management turnover over at ASOS or Estini?
Not at Stone. I think that's fairly minor. ASOS, yes, definitely. When you have your CEO and then a CFO, COO quit within a year, that's a concern. But my view on it is they're either going to die, which I don't think is going to happen, and then maybe I lose 50%, or they survive this bit and it goes up 5 to 10x. So it's kind of it's a bet, right? It's like I think they're going to make it through. I think this is just.
Uh-oh.
Am I lagged?
A little bit right there, but now you're back.
Yeah, the beers cut you off on that one. We've lost him.
He'll be back in a moment. He was on a roll too. I'll go ahead and I'll pitch Mike's channel again in case you guys missed it. But he's and here he is. He's got his own channel where he talks about some of the things he's looking at in the stock market, some of his individual holdings, and kind of putting some theses out there. So definitely go check his channel out if you haven't already. And he's also in the Discord if you want to say hi there. It's a cool. Mike, you were saying.
I don't know where I got cut off.
It might be a 10x or it's going to 0, something like that.
Yeah, it's probably not a 0 because they have brands that are worth something, and the stock's priced like it's dead. And I think that I don't know. Do you guys know anything about this? It's basically selling at 0.2 times sales right now.
This is ASOS.
ASOS, yeah.
Yeah, haven't looked at it since.
Did our episode long ago, right?
That is down a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so
wow. Glad we didn't add it to the portfolio at that time, right? It was a vote.
Yeah, we were talking about it at about 30 Great British pounds, and it's like 8 now. So
yeah, so basically it's priced as if it's going out of business. So I've got about 10% in this now, like as of this week. Mm-hmm. But I mean, look, the sales are 4 billion, and what's the whole stock trading at? 700 million, and they're going to be, and their goal is 7 billion in sales in 3 years. So if they get back to any kind of margin, 3-4%, it'll be up a huge amount. Basically,
a special situation sort of play then, right?
Well, but if you look at their stock price, can you pull up the?
Yes.
Pull out like a 10-year chart up. You see it keeps going down. Every time it goes down, the margins go down to 1%, and then they come back up to 4%. Like it cycles like this, and everybody thinks it's going out of business. And so I think we're just in another one of those cycles because they're really in an investment stage. Like they're actually taking all the cash flow and plowing it back into like automating the business and just like building out in the US and stuff. So I think they're not even trying to make money right now, as far as I can tell. So I think this is like.
Do they have debt?
I don't. You better check it. I don't want to answer because I forget.
I'm pulling up the balance sheet for you, Mike. Let's see. Where
or material debt?
Not. It's
Just
significant, but not crazy. 500 million.
Is there a net cash or net debt thing on ticker if you scroll right down on the balance sheet?
Well, cash they
you
got about
scroll
400 million, but I don't know if is there a net.
Yeah,
Net debt here. 400 million if you total everything up. I was looking at long-term debt specifically.
Yeah.
And they took that debt on, that was to buy Topshop brands. So it was a specific purpose. And that was an accretive purchase. It was quite smart. They bought it like when Topshop was getting annihilated by the pandemic. So it was actually I think they got it at a serious discount. So I think that was quite a clever move. But the CEO who did it is gone now. So we're kind of like flying blind now.
Yeah. And he was the founder, wasn't he? Or had been there a long time, at least?
No, the founder was the first CEO. Then they had another guy after that who did, I forget how many years he was there, Nick Baton.
Right.
It was like for 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And now they've just hired a new guy whose track record doesn't look great. So I think there's a lot of disasters, but when you look at the actual business, the business is actually just ticking along. It looks pretty good.
Interesting. And STNE, is that a small Berkshire position?
Yeah, small Berkshire and Kathy Wood.
So it's deep value.
That's interesting overlap.
How many of those are there?
That's the one. Do you guys know about this one? Have you looked into it?
I've only seen what you guys talk about in the Discord, like here and there. That's about it. I have not followed it though.
They're a fintech company in Brazil, basically hyper growth. They're growing. I think the last Q2 was 250% growth or something, and shockingly, they're actually profitable as well, right? So how many hyper growth companies actually are profitable? It may not show in there, but the adjusted earnings look good. And I mean, I could go for a long time on this one, but basically, you're getting a hyper growth, very profitable company that is about to be. They're not that profitable right now. Sorry, let me go back. So they had a credit product. So they do these point of sale systems in Brazil, and so they make money on the transactions. But they've also got banking attached to it, and their credit product in the bank side makes lots of money. But they had to shut it down for about a year, and it's going to come back online in a few months, like 4, 5, 6 months, and the earnings should skyrocket after that. Maybe.
Am I looking at that right? So 3 billion in market cap almost.
Yeah.
And they have last 12 months 3 billion in free cash flow?
No, that's wrong. I think
that sounds ridiculous.
That's not US dollars, I think, maybe. Can you just put everything?
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. That's weird because I have it at USD up here. Okay, that makes way more sense now. I'm like, all right, okay, that's much more. So, but still, $500 million in free cash flow, almost 600 million in free cash flow.
I wouldn't trust that number, but like you'll see that they could hit 30% plus margins when they're running.
But like you said, they're reinvesting a bunch in the growth, and they still have positive free cash flow, which is pretty hard to do.
Very rare,
right, for any company. Interesting.
There's a guy in the Discord chat. If anybody's interested in Stone, come on over to the Discord chat, and you will get all the StoneCo info you could ever want.
See, Mike knows what he's doing. He fits right in. He's pitching the Discord.
Discord's great. There's a lot of bright people in there. You guys have a really smart following, I think.
We enjoy it. So, and that's what it's there for. It's just a place to connect with other like-minded and not like-minded folks who are at least interested in looking for decent investment ideas.
Anyway, cool. I did a bad job with StoneCo, but you should look at it. There's a huge amount of upside there.
It's a fine primer. That's really a lot what the show is. It's primers. If you like, at least you're somewhat interested, then you can go further from there. But this should never be the end point for anyone's research. If you get an idea that seems interesting, then go for it. But hashtag not financial advice anyways. Well, cool.
And Matt, Nick Sleep, we don't know if he still owns ASOS. He doesn't talk to anyone. Matt asked a question about, does Nick Sleep still own it? And I don't think we know, do we?
No, he does have 13F, but ASOS isn't going to show up there. Yeah. Which also hasn't changed. He's still got like Costco, Berkshire, and Amazon.
Yeah.
The core. Cool. Well, and any final words before we wrap up here?
Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun. I really appreciate the invite, Jack and Tom.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for coming on. I know it's always an awkward time, late on a Friday, but hey, you got the West Coast advantage, so it's not so late. But we appreciate you taking the time, and this was great. We'll have to have you back some other time if you ever want to come back, of course.
Anytime.
But we'll definitely see you on YouTube. So like I said a couple times now, go check out Mike's channel. I'll try to remember to link it in a comment below once this posts. It takes a while to process. But Mike Sharp, just your name. And everyone in the chat, let's give Mike some props. Applause emojis, smiley faces, whatever you want to do. You can always throw money as well. We'll take super chats on his behalf. All that helps too. So let's all thank Mike. But otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Check out the links in the Discord. There's good stuff in there too. Or check out the links in the description, including the link to the Discord. A lot of other good stuff in there too. But yeah, till next time, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Punch Card Investing. The contents of this show should not be used as investment advice or as a recommendation to invest in a particular security. Please consult with a licensed investment advisor if you need investment advice. All investments carry risk and the potential for monetary loss. Thank you, and see you next week.